Tim again scanned the foliage, but saw nothing. The rain continued to pour. "Hell of a rain," Ed Regis said. "It's really coming down." Lex said, "I'm hungry." "I know that, Lex," Regis said, "but we're stuck here, sweetie, until they fix the electricity." Listening to the sound of the rain, "Tim, are you there?" He picked up the radio. "Yes, I'm here." "Are you wearing the night vision goggles, Tim?" "Yes, I'll watch," Tim said. There was a sudden white crack of lightning, and his night goggles flared bright green. The thunder crashed, deafeningly loud and very close. Lex began to cry. Tim scanned the side of the road. The rain was coming down hard now, shaking the leaves with hammering drops. He scanned the leaves. He stopped. There was something beyond the leaves. Tim looked up higher. Behind the foliage, beyond the fence, he saw a thick body with a pebbled, grainy surface like the bark of a tree. But it wasn't a tree. He continued to look higher, sweeping the goggles upward. He saw the huge head of the Tyrannosaurus just standing there, looking over the fence at the two land cruisers. "Tim?"
"Yes, Dr. Grant?"
"You see what it is?"
"Yes, Dr. Grant."
Tim had the sense that Dr. Grant was trying to talk in a way that wouldn't upset his sister.
"What's going on right now?"
"Nothing," Tim said, watching the Tyrannosaur through his night goggles. "Just standing on the other side of the fence."
"I can't see much from here, Tim."
"I can see fine, Dr. Grant. It's just standing there."
"Okay."
Lex continued to cry, snuffling. Tim watched the Tyrannosaur. The animal looked from one vehicle to another, then back again. It seemed to stare right at Tim. Tim felt a chill. The greatest predator the world has ever known. The most fearsome attack in human history. Somewhere in the back of his publicist's brain, Ed Regis was still writing copy. But he could feel his knees begin to shake uncontrollably, his trousers flapping like flags. Jesus, he was frightened. Ed Regis knew what a dinosaur attack was like. He knew what happened to people. And this was a Rex. Much, much bigger. The greatest meat-eater that ever walked the earth. When the Tyrannosaur roared, it was terrifying, a scream from some other world. But he knew he had to do something. He couldn't just stay here. He had to do something. Something! Tim heard the sound of a door opening, and he swung his head away from the Tyrannosaur. The night vision goggles streaked laterally, in time to see Ed Regis stepping out through the open door, ducking his head in the rain. Ed Regis just turned and ran in the opposite direction from the Tyrannosaur, disappearing into the woods. "He left," Lex said. "Where did he go? He left us alone." "Shut the door," Tim said. But she had started to scream.
"Tim, what's going on?"
It was Dr. Grant on the radio.
"Tim!"
Tim leaned forward and tried to shut the door. From the back seat, he couldn't reach the handle. He looked back at the Tyrannosaur as lightning flashed again, momentarily silhouetting the huge black shape against the white flaring sky. "Tim, what's happening?"
"He left us!
He left us!" The Tyrannosaur was standing there, exactly as before, motionless and huge. Rain dripped from its jaws. And then Tim realized the fence wasn't electrified anymore. "Lex, close the door!" The radio crackled. "Tim!"
"I'm here, Dr. Grant."
"What's going on?"
"Regis ran away."
Tim said. "He what?"
"He ran away. I think he saw that the fence isn't electrified."
Tim said. "The fence isn't electrified," Malcolm said over the radio. "Did he say the fence isn't electrified?" "Lex," Tim said, "close the door!" But Lex was screaming in a steady, monotonous wail, and there was nothing for Tim to do but climb out of the back door into the slashing rain and shut the door for her. Thunder rumbled and the lightning flashed again. Tim looked up and saw the Tyrannosaur crashing down the cyclone fence with a giant hind limb. "Timmy!" He jumped back in and slammed the door, the sound lost in the thunderclap. The radio.
"Tim, are you there?"
He grabbed the radio. "I'm here." He turned to Lex. "Lock the doors. Get in the middle of the car and shut up." Outside, the Tyrannosaur rolled its head and took an awkward step forward. The claws of its feet had caught in the grid of the flattened fence. Lex saw the animal finally and became silent, still. She watched with wide eyes. Radio crackled. "Tim."
"Yes, Dr. Grant."
"Stay in the car. Stay down. Be quiet. Don't move, and don't make noise." "Okay."
"You should be all right. I don't think you can open the car."
"Okay."
Just stay quiet so you don't arouse its attention any more than necessary.
Okay. Tim clicked the radio off. You hear that, Lex? His sister nodded silently. She never took her eyes off the dinosaur. The Tyrannosaur roared. Now it was standing between the two cars. Tim couldn't see Dr. Grant's car anymore because the huge body blocked his view. He couldn't see the animal's head, which was high above the roofline. The Tyrannosaur moved around the side of their car. It went to the very spot where Tim had gotten out of the car, where Ed Regis had gotten out of the car. The animal paused there, the big head ducked down toward the mud. The huge head raised back up, jaws open, and then stopped by the side windows. In the glare of lightning, they saw the beady, expressionless reptile eye moving in the socket. It was looking in the car. Perhaps the dinosaur couldn't really see them, he thought. He was looking back toward Dr. Grant when a jolting impact rocked the Land Cruiser and shattered the windshield in a spider web as the Tyrannosaur's head crashed against the hood of the Land Cruiser. "Lex!" Tim whispered. Then he heard her groan. She was lying somewhere on the floor under the front seat. Then the huge head came down, entirely blocking the shattered windshield. The Tyrannosaur banged again on the front hood of the Land Cruiser. Tim grabbed the seat as the car rocked on its wheels. The Tyrannosaur banged down twice more, denting the metal. Then it moved around the side of the car. At the back, the animal snorted a deep, rumbling growl that blended with the thunder. "Tim!" Dr. Grant said. "Tim! Are you there?" Tim grabbed the radio. "We're okay," he said. There was a shrill metallic scrape as claws raked the roof of the car. Tim's heart was pounding in his chest. He couldn't see anything out of the windows on the right side except pebbled, leathery flesh. Tim put down the radio and started to crawl over into the front seat. The Tyrannosaur roared, and the metal roof dented downward. Tim felt a sharp pain in his head and tumbled to the floor onto the transmission hump. He found himself lying alongside Lex. She looked unconscious. There was another jolting impact, and pieces of glass fell all around him. Tim felt rain. He looked up and saw that the front windshield had broken out. There was just a jagged rim of glass, and beyond, the big head of the dinosaur, looking down at him. Tim felt a sudden chill, and then the head rushed forward toward him, the jaws open. There was a squeal of metal against teeth, and he felt the hot, stinking breath of the animal, and a thick tongue stuck into the car through the windshield opening. The tongue slapped wetly around inside the car. He felt the hot lather of dinosaur saliva, and the Tyrannosaur roared, a deafening sound inside the car. The head pulled away abruptly. Tim scrambled up, avoiding the dent in the roof. There was still room to sit on the front seat by the passenger door. The Tyrannosaur looked at Tim, cocking its head to stare with one big eye. The head moved close to the car, sideways, and peered in. Then the head pulled away, and in the glare of lightning he saw the hind leg lift up as the Land Cruiser slammed over on his side, the window splatting in the mud. He saw Lex fall helplessly against the side window, and he fell down beside her, banging his head. Then the Tyrannosaur's jaws clamped onto the window frame, and the whole Land Cruiser was lifted up into the air and shaken. As the Tyrannosaur crashed the car down again, Tim felt a stabbing pain in his side, and his sister fell on top of him. The car went up again, tilting crazily. Lex shouted, "Timmy!" And he saw the door give way beneath her, and she fell out of the car into the mud. But Tim couldn't answer, because in the next instant, everything swung crazily. He saw the trunks of the palm trees sliding downward past him, moving sideways through the air. And then, with a metallic scraping shriek, the car fell from the Tyrannosaur's jaws, a sickening fall, and Tim's stomach heaved in the moment before the world became totally black and silent. In the other car, Malcolm gasped, "Jesus, what happened to the car?" Grant blinked his eyes as the lightning faded. The other car was gone. Grant couldn't believe it. He peered forward, trying to see through the rain-streaked windshield. The dinosaur's body was so large, it was probably just blocking... No. In another flash of lightning, he saw clearly the car was gone. "What happened?" Malcolm said. "I don't know," Grant said. He felt a seeping fatigue overtake him. Blurred through the rainy windshield, the dinosaur was coming towards their car. slow, ominous strides coming right toward them. Malcolm said, "Perhaps extinct animals should be left extinct. Don't you have that feeling now?" "Yes," Grant said. He was feeling his heart pounding. Do you, have any suggestions about what we do now?" "I can't think of a thing," Grant said. Malcolm twisted the handle, kicked open the door, and ran. The Tyrannosaur too close. There was another crack of lightning, and in that instant of glaring white light, Grant watched in horror as the Tyrannosaur roared and leapt forward, and Malcolm was tossed into the air like a small doll. By then, Grant was out of the car too, feeling the cold rain slashing his face and body, when suddenly the Tyrannosaur spun back to face him and roared. Grant froze. He was standing beside the Land Cruiser, drenched in rain. He was completely exposed, the Tyrannosaur no more than 8 feet away. The big animal roared again. At so close a range, the sound was terrifyingly loud. The Tyrannosaur roared once more, but it did not attack. It cocked its head and looked with first one eye, then the other at the Land Cruiser, and it did nothing. It just stood there. What was going on? No. The Tyrannosaur couldn't see him, not if he stood motionless. And in a detached academic corner of his mind, he found an explanation for that, a reason why. The Tyrannosaur bellowed in the night air. But by now, Grant was beginning to understand. The animal couldn't see him, but it suspected he was there, somewhere. So long as he stood his ground, Grant realized he was invisible. In a final gesture of frustration, the big hind leg lifted up and kicked the Land Cruiser over, and Grant felt the surprising sensation of his own body flying through the air and watched the ground strike him in the face.